Guys, we've come to our last session. If all of your other systems are working within the company, finance is then the glue that holds all of this together. So we've asked Uwais, our executive head of advisory, as well as Damian Baker, our head cloud accounting manager, to discuss finance in a growing company in this new world with us. Gents, over to you.
Thanks, Lo.
Thanks so much, Lo. Good afternoon, everyone. As Lo mentioned, I'm the executive head of advisory services. And joining me for our discussion on the finance outlook for 2022 is Damian Baker, our head of cloud accounting, who our CEO managed to poach from a big firm. And so now we're well on our way to competing with the big companies doing things the CFO way. So Damian, I wanted to talk to you about the accounting function for each company specifically, but you mentioned before we jumped on that you had some questions for me. So let's touch on those first, and then I'll answer your questions.
Perfect, Uwais. Thanks for the introduction as well. Uwais, I would just like to know, what is your actual thoughts currently on the global economy and how that impacts businesses currently in South Africa on their objectives?
That's a great question. So, I mean, if a lot of you might have known that interest rates are starting to increase. So your consumer has less money to spend and prices are starting to increase. If your consumer has less money to spend, they might be spending less money on you. Some businesses are not adapting for situations where costs are rising. This means that their profits are falling and even their working capital is being put under pressure, especially if they've got clients that pay late. There's also global supply chain shortages. So maybe you might say, my business is not really affected directly by global supply chain shortages, but your suppliers or the suppliers of your suppliers might be significantly affected. And have you considered how that would impact your sales if your supplier can't deliver to you? Stock that normally gets imported from overseas might be significantly delayed, or the cost to get them on time might be significantly more. I mean, in the US, there's certain port costs that used to cost like $1,000 is costing $10 or $20,000 to get there. So your costs have gone up significantly, and some companies are not taking consideration for that.
Oh, Uwais, it's a lot of changes that's currently happening within South Africa as well, and a lot of changes that businesses have to actually deal with. So now the next question is, how would a finance team actually deal with these changes? Because you mentioned a lot of things now, importation costs that are increasing, your landing costs are increasing, and the cost to get it to your premises are also getting higher. So how would the finance team deal with this?
So simply, how the finance team or even the business owner, my question to them is, do you have a budget or a cash flow in place? If not, that's where you need to start. If you have a budget, your budget needs to cater for all these increases in costs, these increases in expenses. Your cash flow forecast will immediately show you whether you have sufficient cash in 6 to 12 months' time. A lot of businesses have financial year ends that are now at the end of February, but most business owners are managing their business from their bank account alone. So they're not considering that they have to pay a massive provisional tax payment in 3 weeks. And that's a massive cash flow risk. Cash is king. And if you don't have the cash, you will be out of business very, very quickly.
Now, Uwais, it's a scary thing to actually think about, because improper cash management can actually lead into long-term problems for the business. And that is not from a finance team perspective, but now as a business owner, let's say I'm not very financially literate as well. I've got an idea, I want to grow my business. How would I have to think about the changes in the environment that I'm operating in?
So let's take it down to the detail. Let's start with pricing. What are you currently basing your pricing on? Yes, you could say maybe it's supply and demand, or my competitors have this price, so I chose the same price. But if your costs are going up, pricing is something you need to look down on an individual product level. What is my price per product? What is my profitability for product? This is something that the CFO can help you with, because you might think, oh, my sales are going up, but your costs are going up higher, and you might actually be selling at a loss, or you might be making profit on your individual items. But when you add all your costs together with all these increasing costs, you're making a loss because you haven't considered it. So that's something, bring in a CFO to help you have a look at that, from pricing assessments, budgets, and so forth. Maybe if I can just switch a little, I want to circle back to those questions that I wanted to ask you earlier. So
okay.
For an individual company, how can I optimize my accounting function with the impact or this global impact of inflation, supply chain issues? Give us your thoughts there, please.
Oh, Uwais, we can sit here for hours speaking about this topic. Unfortunately, we don't have that. But let's look at the impact of inflation even. It's a major impact on South Africa at this stage. And even if we're importing abroad, the exchange rate is also not in our favor at all. So business owners need to actually focus on optimizing their internal resources. And I'm talking about cash and all of that. But another resource that is sometimes overlooked is time. How do you effectively use time in your organization? And I'm going to pose two questions to everyone on the call today. Have you automated manual accounting processes in your organization? Secondly, can your current accounting system actually be automated? And the reason why I'm saying this is currently there is numerous technology available on the market which will enable you to automate manual accounting processes. So as a business owner, as someone in the finance team in an organization, you can actually focus on more important tasks. For example, growing your business, getting more sales, expanding your business, and not just being caught up in administrative tasks that is laborsome and takes up significant time from you as a business owner, which is actually pulling your attention away from expanding your operations. So I would definitely say, let's look at automating your business in a more effective way. Thanks, Uwais.
Time is money after all, isn't it?
Exactly.
So, and let's talk your finance team in particular. How do I set up my finance team for success?
Oh, Uwais. So let's be realistic. What's happened in the last couple of years now with COVID and everything as well. Remote working is the way forward as well. And we have picked up now that it's actually working effectively. You could have staff members sitting in Egypt today working on your company, and it should not be a problem. And what we've picked up from our client base as well, that clients have taken a step back and started thinking about this. Is it worth my time to actually employ someone full-time for 8 hours a day for an entire month and actually use that person just to do accounting processing? Rather look at outsourcing that opportunity cost to a firm that can actually assist you with a set number of hours, for example, 8 hours on a monthly basis only. That's all your business needs at this point in time. And through this, you're going to reduce risk. And what I mean by that is that your team that you are going to hire to help you with your financing side, they actually have the skill set, and it's a multidisciplinary team. There is tax specialists, there's accounting specialists, there's secretarial, payroll specialists. And as a small business owner, you might not necessarily have the capital to actually invest in that type of staff complement for your organization. So I would say, look at optimizing your internal operations. If you need internal staff, by all means, see how you can optimize the usage. But outsourcing is a brilliant way to go. It's cost effective, it reduces risk, and as a business owner, it helps you with your cash flow as well.
So if I'm appointing one person, I get one person's skills. If I appoint a firm, I get everybody's skill that comes with that firm.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. You touched on it a little bit earlier, but you talked about remote working. Well, Helen talked about remote working as well. Do you think once everything is normalized, will remote working disappear?
Whereas people have become very comfortable with this whole remote working environment, I do foresee remote working staying with us for a very long time to come, but it's not going to be a full work from home situation. It's going to be a hybrid model. As Wilhelm has mentioned, you need to accommodate that model that people want to work from home, have flexible working hours, and sometimes come into the office to complete certain tasks. Let's look at what's happening currently in the market. Growth Point Properties, massive property company in South Africa, lots of business properties, and they've got these big, fancy office blocks standing empty. So they've actually now gone on a journey now that they're actually converting these big, fancy office blocks into high-end apartments. And they're not the only ones doing this. Organizations have realized that this remote working environment is fundamentally changing. And this is changing the view of how businesses are operating. Why invest significant amount of money in a building that's going to stand empty? And this is something that COVID has shown us, that we are able to adapt to our circumstances. So I'm going to leave a question to everyone on the call today. So as a business owner, what other changes can you make in your business to adapt?
And that's quite interesting because I know one of the big four banks, one of the Cape Town offices, when they sent everybody home for remote working, they actually sold their building and they haven't bought a new building since then. So until further notice, those staff is going to be working from home, and you can't just buy a building tomorrow or next week. These things take time. So for the next year or two, they'll be working from home. But just in terms of let's end up with an important takeaway from our discussion. What is preventing you from achieving your goals as a business owner? Damian, over to you.
Uwais, I would honestly say is reluctance to change. At this stage, there's a lot of things that have changed in the market. Change your mindset to optimize your operations internally so that you as a business owner can focus on growing your business. So that's my key takeaway for 2022.